Welcome everyone. I just hope I didn't inconvenience anyone who came to class or who came to school today and they expected to get me there. And I apologize for everything. I'm about to start with the tutorial. I'm doing chapter 8, and from here we'll take it from here. We'll do chapter 10, chapter 11, as well as the rest of the chapters. So those who don't know me, my name is Kenneth Makgodielo. You can also find our auditing group on Facebook at External Auditing 3 2017, or you can join us on Google Classroom using the code CBPDFLW. So without any waste of time, I will still encourage you guys to study through the textbook, because the textbook has all the information that you need to know. What I'm doing here is just a summary, and to make sure that you understand the chapter and what kind of questions can you expect from those chapters, or what kind of questions can you expect from all of these chapters. So yeah, let's go through. The first thing that you are seeing on my screen is just the cover page. I hope you guys can see this. Okay, chapter 8, computer audit, the basics. They say that controls in computerized environment are categorized as either general controls or application controls. Very simple, general controls or application controls. Now, without any waste of time, let me explain what are general controls. Well, we say that general controls establish overall framework of control for computer activities. They are controls which should be in place before any processing of transaction take place. For example, a policy on code of conduct that promotes good behavior among employees will be regarded as a general control. So I just hope you guys understand this thing. A general control, we say that it is any control that should be in place before any process of transactions take place. Then we give you an example. We say that a policy on code of conduct that promotes good behavior among employees will be regarded as a general control. Categories of general controls: we have control environment, system development and implementation controls, access control, continuity of operation, system software and operating controls, and lastly, the last one, documentation. Now, these controls or these categories, they can be broken down further into subcategories. So these ones is categories of general controls. We also have subcategories of each category that we just mentioned. The first category that we had control environment, and the subcategory goes as follows. We have communication and enforcement of integrity and ethical values, commitment to competence, participation by those charged with governance, management's philosophy and operating style, organizational structure, assignment of authority and responsibility, and lastly, the last one being human resource policies and practice. Now, if you can remember this chapter or this part, especially control environment, if you can check on chapter 5, page 7, it's also part of components of internal control. So it is not surprising that we are repeating this in chapter 8. Here we are also emphasizing that control environment is also important, although it will be seen as part of the internal controls. It is also part of the IT world as well. So what do we mean when we say communication and enforcement of integrity and ethical values? You must remember, as much as technology is making our life very easier, it can also complicate things. For example, if you are going to have dishonest workers who are part of the IT, they can easily manipulate the IT world, or they can easily hack the system or even crash the system for their own benefits. So you need to ensure that the IT personnel, you hire personnel that understands and that will adhere to the integrity and ethical values that are needed to be upheld in the IT department. Then we say commitment to competence. What do we mean by that? In the IT, we in government they will normally hire someone who does not have experience just because of political connection, while IT industry it's same as health industry. You cannot have a doctor who's not qualified as a doctor by profession, because the work needs a person who really has the skill and the knowledge of what they are doing. Same with IT. We need someone who is competent, someone who knows the language, someone who is going to oversee that the IT in any department or in the business runs smoothly. So you cannot put your friend here just because there's a connection. You will need to hire someone who's qualified, who's knowledgeable, who's experienced, and who has the skill to take on the job. Then we say participation by those charged with governance. Now we are referring to the directors. Remember, IT is not supposed to be part of, maybe let's say, the accounting division. IT must be a separate division within any working environment, meaning that you will have your accounting department, you must also have your IT department, because you can imagine what is going to happen if the accounting department, someone from accounting and someone from IT personnel, they can collude. It means that they will be able to do a lot of fraud, because the other one deals with money, the other one knows how to work into systems. So we must ensure that for the sake of segregation of duties, we separate the two divisions. And the other thing that is important is that we will only allow IT personnel into the IT department. If you are not working in the IT environment or in the IT department, then there is no need for you to even enter this premises or to even enter this division, because clearly there is nothing for you in the department. That's why, as you will see as we go on, when you talk about access under security policies, we are saying that at least we must have least privilege. Least privilege, this is to say that the workers will only be given access to divisions, to tasks, to systems that they only need to perform their work. If you are not an order clerk, then we cannot give you access to the ordering system because you are not an order clerk. Very simple. Or if you are not working in the warehouse, we cannot give you the access to pick and sleep because you are not in the warehouse. So what do we mean by participation by those charged with governance? We are saying that although IT is a different department, directors as well as management, the board as a whole, they must also show interest in the IT world or in the IT department, because IT department is still part of that entity. As much as it is functioning alone at the side, it is also part of the whole company at the end of the day. So you need management to be able to say, you know what, they must listen to grievances, they must make sure that they show interest in the IT division. For example, if you have your directors, you will ensure that they will have regular meetings with the chief information officer to get updates on what is happening in the IT department. So IT department plays a very crucial role, because EFTs and any other source, nowadays the world is a technology world, so we need an IT. It's very important, and it's one of the essential aspects in any business. Then we talk about management's philosophy and operating style. Here we are saying that how the leader operates, it will be reflected on the co-workers under him. If that leader is a person who is negligent, it's a person who is careless, then you can expect the very same employees under him to behave in the same way. This is to say that if we are saying that password must not be shared, the chief information officer must lead by example and not share any passwords. So if you can demonstrate that leadership, then we think that even the employees that are working under him will uphold the same philosophy, that, you know what, passwords are very crucial and they are not supposed to be shared. That's what we mean by management's philosophy and operating style. Then we have organizational structure, assignment of authority and responsibility. Here we are saying to you that even if you are a CEO in your own company, you cannot also act as a CIO, meaning that if you are a chief executive director, we cannot also appoint you as the chief information officer because clearly you do not have any knowledge about IT. So in the IT, we will also need to appoint the CIO, a person who's an expert to be in charge of IT, and every personnel in the IT department will need to report to the CIO, which is the person who is an expert. Now the last one, we have human resource policies and practice. This is to say that the IT division must not be neglected. As much as you will have performance appraisal in other departments, it is also important that we have those things in the IT department, meaning that at the end of every year, at least the HR can do is that they can hold annual meetings where they review the performance of personnel, and if there's any need for training or for further study, they must also initiate that to ensure that their IT division is abreast and is aware of any developments that are happening in IT. You know, in IT, if you have an idea today, if you can sit with it for very long times, it becomes a disbanded idea because IT worlds, it develops very fast. So we need to ensure that our HR policies will also be aware of such, to say that our IT personnel need a continuous development to ensure that they are fit for the job. Then the second part, we have system development and implementation control. Now here, that's where we are creating the system. It's either we're going to have an in-house development or we are going to purchase the software outside. That's why it is called packaged software. Then the last one is called program change controls. Now, I'm going to break each and every one of this aspect further down. In-house development, sometimes it can be costly, especially if you do not have enough IT personnel who have set of skills that is needed to develop any systems. Then the option might be for you to buy a package software. Now in the in-house software, that's where you are building the software within the IT company. There is no need to go outside and buy the software because all the resources and the skills and knowledge is there in the company. Then it means it is be easy for you to incorporate an in-house system. So before it can be incorporated, you need to ensure that that system, it meets the required standard. You have the project manager. You ensure that you have the project management team as well. You have a business analyst, someone who's going to come and incorporate and take down all the user requirements. You have the programmers, people who are going to do the actual coding of the software. You also have project testing, meaning that after the project is done, you are going to be able to test the project and to see if there are any errors or debuggings that you can at later stage solve. You need to ensure that the project will be finally approved, meaning that even after the software is made or the system, the project still needs to be approved. You need to ensure that the conversion method is also not going to disturb the daily operations of a business. Because you can imagine if you are running a 24 hours business, 24/7, let's say, and you want to implement a new system, it's going to be difficult if you're going to shut down the whole system. It means the business is going to stop and it's going to disturb the operations. So you must also be careful of the conversion method that you are using. Then with packaged software, normally we say that it's much more better than the in-house development, but sometimes it's very expensive, and sometimes there are other features in the packaged software that are not relevant for your company. That's why most of the companies, they prefer to create their own in-house development softwares. But with packaged software, you have a lot of advantages rather than disadvantages. The advantage of having a packaged software is that wherever you bought the software, those people they are expert in their field, and on a daily basis or on a daily routine. They will update the software, and once it's updated, they will just update yours as well. And if you have any problem with using the software, you can easily talk to them and connect with them. So those are one of the advantages of having a packaged software. But now a disadvantage of this software is that if you purchased this software abroad, outside South Africa, or then you get that sometimes the packaged software is not in compliance with the tax legislation. Let's say you are using a pastel that was not incorporated or developed for South Africa. It means that in terms of tax legislations and the percentages is going to be different. So those are one of the things that you must be careful when you buy a packaged software. And the other thing is that some of the features you really don't need them. They are just additional features. Or if there's something that you want to change on the software, you cannot change it because it is not yours. So those are advantages that you can have with the packaged software. Now, program change controls, there we are saying that before any changes can take place, you must ensure that we involve all the user requirements, we involve the IT steering committee as well as the CIO to approve the changes. And once all the changes are approved, we make sure that we document all those changes so that we make it easier to trace what we did. You cannot have changes and you didn't at the first place document anything. So it's very important that you document everything that takes place. The other one, we have access control. In access control, we have security policy, we have physical access controls, we have logical access controls. Now, in the security policy, I mentioned few policies that you can implement. We have least privilege, fail-safe, defense in depth, and logging. Least privilege means that employees should be given access to only those aspects of the system which are necessary for the proper performance of their duties, meaning that you must only have access to what you need to perform your job. You must not be given access to everything. Access must be limited to the things that you need to perform your duties. Then the other one is fail-safe. Fail-safe, we say if a control fails, whatever is being protected by that control should remain safe. Meaning that, for example, I will give you an example with the ITS system at school. If, let's say, your friend or yourself, you forgot the ITS password and you try to enter the system 3 times, normally what happens is that after the 3rd attempt, the system will log you out and will block you, and you will only be able to access the system the next day. That's what we mean by fail-safe. We are saying that even if the system has failed, the information that is protected by the system shall remain safe. Then defense in depth, we are saying that protection is not left up to one control only, but rather to a combination of controls, meaning that normally what you get, general controls, they go hand in hand with application controls. You understand? For example, normally I will make example with a lot of things that happen at school, so don't get me wrong. When you access the gate in the morning, the main gate, what you normally do, you put your student card against the tag, it tags you, you go in. Once you go in, the security guard still needs to ensure that the person who entered the premises is the person that is on the student card, meaning that at least you must have your picture on the student card and you could see that that is you, because student card, it can get stolen and someone can access the system or can access school using your student card. So it's very important that the security also checks your identification. Now the other thing with that, if you tag at school, you tag against the system and it opens the gate for you, that's an application control, because it verifies you on the system if you are there, and if you are there, it will allow you to enter the premises. But when Mafoko security guard checks your student card and confirms that the person that is on the student card, it's you. That will be a general control. So that's why I'm saying most of the time the general controls and the application controls, they go hand in hand. Now the last one is logging. Logging, we say the computer's ability to log or to record activity which takes place on it should be extensively incorporated, meaning that after accessing the system using the terminals, we should be able to track down what every movement that you were doing on the system. That's why I normally tell people that it's a bad attitude or a bad behavior to, if you're at a workplace, you use the computers at work to search for another job. Because you can imagine if they can find out that you were searching for another job or you are applying for other jobs using their resources, it means they have the right to fire you. They didn't hire you to come and look for other jobs. So please be careful with those. I know most of the people, they do it. With those who are searching for jobs using the resources or the terminals of a company, because these companies, they don't want to lose any funds unless you're working in government. I don't think government have problem. The controls at government, we all know they are very weak. But if it's a private company, everything that you are doing on that computer is being recorded. If you are accessing Facebook, you're going YouTube, you're downloading series and everything, they're writing down everything. There was a famous story that I know that one of the guys got fired for downloading porn at work. So it is because they could see that whatever that you are accessing with the computers at work. So please be careful of that. It is because of such security policy logging, because they can see everything that you are doing. And the other one, we have physical access control. Physical access talks about having the keys, having biometrical cards, using fingerprint, magnetic card, and everything to access the system. Logical access controls, we talk about identification, authentication, and authorization. Identification is how we identify the user. We identify you by a student card or by a user card or magnetic card or the fingerprint. Then the other one is authentication. I tell people that every day that there's a big difference between authentication and authorization. In terms of authentication, we authenticate you by putting a unique password. If you put a unique password, that will be authentication. Authorization, it is the level of access that is being given to you. I made an example in class to say that some people, they have read access only. Some people, they have read and write access. For example, let's take the ITS system where you view your marks. As a student, you only have read access. Once you enter your student number and the PIN, what you can only do, you can only read the information that you are seeing on the system. But for lecturers, it's different. Lecturers can access the system. They can read and write, meaning that they can even change the information that they are seeing on the system. So that's what we mean by authorization. Then we have continuity of operations. Continuity of operations have the following subcategories. We have risk assessment, physical security, and disaster recovery. Risk assessment, we are saying that in any company, it must ensure that, especially in the IT world, they have IT risk committee. This is the committee that is going to ensure that it deals with all the potential threats, known and unknown threats that can happen within the IT system. If you can remember what happened at Microsoft, where the emails was hacked. Normally what happened is that the emails were hacked, the Microsoft Office Outlook was hacked, and they will send you phishing emails. Normally what happens in phishing emails, you open the email, they will send you a link, and once you can click on the link, they will have full access to your emails and all the sensitive information. So please be careful. Do not open any emails that you don't know where they come from, or click on any links. Then we have physical security. Then we have disaster recovery. With disaster recovery, we are saying that you do not want your business to stop operating just because of you have lost a certain information. That's why we have disaster recovery. You must have you must have a grandfather, a father, and a son, meaning that you must have 3 copies where you back up your information. And all of those 3 copies, they must not be in the same environment, meaning that the other copy must be in a different location and the other one must be in a different location for the sake of security and to ensure that you're not going to lose all the information that you have. Then we have system development and operating controls. Sorry about that. So, system software is made up of various kinds of softwares, including, among other things, operating system software, network management software, database management software, system development software, system support programs. Now, these are all the softwares that you need in order to have an efficient IT department or an efficient terminals that are going to work. With operating system, we are saying that before you make any purchase of a software, you must ensure that its compatibility is going to be able to work on your system, meaning that whatever software that you are going to purchase, you must remember we have different softwares. Same with your cell phone. People who are using iPhone, they know what I'm talking about. People that are using iPhone, they have their own operating system. People who are using Samsungs and Huawei and all those other phones, they are using Android system, meaning that if you want to download an app that is an Android build, you cannot install it on your iPhone because of such things. Then we have network management software. We have database management software. What we mean by database management software, it is where you are going to store your information. Normally, large companies have large server because the larger the data that you are having, the larger the server must be. So most of the companies, they are using SQL in terms of database management software. Then we have systems development software. These are the software that you need to use in order to build other softwares or applications. So you will have your Visual Studios and other softwares. Then we have system support programs. System support programs, we talk about things like antiviruses that you will install to ensure that your computer does not crash or the information does not get stolen. Then the last one, we talk about documentation. We say that documentation can be critically important in improving overall operating efficiency, providing audit evidence in respect of computer-related controls, avoiding undue reliance on key personnel, training of users when systems are initially implemented. This one of avoiding undue reliance on key personnel, it's very key as well, because what happens in other companies is that you have those personnel or those staff members, if they are not at work, everything just becomes a mess because of one person is not at work. So you must avoid having one person knowing everything. You must rotate your personnel to ensure that everyone within the business knows everything, so that even if one person goes on leave, you can still use the other staff member to take on the job of that person. Or sometimes if one person knows a lot and he does not even want to go to leave, what usually happens is that guys, as I'm so sorry about that. So my system just went off. I had to make sure that I restart the system. So I'm sorry about that. So what I was saying is that the disadvantage of having one personnel who knows everything is that this person can easily commit fraud without anyone noticing, because he's the one who knows everything. So we need other people to also be able to know most of the job functions, so that even if he's not there, the company can go on with its operations. Then we have application controls. We say that application controls are controls which are relevant to a specific task within a cycle of the accounting system. Is any control within the application which contributes to the accurate, complete recording and processing of transactions which have actually occurred and have been authorized. Meaning that application control is normally tasked to a specific function within the accounting system. So the stages through which a transaction flows through the system can be described as input, processing, and output. And application controls can be described in terms of these activities. For example, an application control relating to input. What do we mean by input, processing, and output? Input, we say it is when you key in information using computer keyboard, and a mouse. Processing, what actually happens to the information that is keyed on the systems. Processing is a combination of elements in the system. Output is the final results or outcome. For example, a report. Now, normally I do example about a printer. What happens, let's say you want to make a copy, you come up with a paper. You put that paper in a printer. Once you put it, that's an input. Let's say you want to make 50 copies. The photocopy machine makes 50 copies. It processes the paper, then it makes the same identity of the paper 50 times. Then from there you get 50 copies. When it processes, that's processing. After you get the 50 copies, that will be the end results. That's why we say that output is normally the final results or the outcome. So we have program checks for input. We talk about validation checks, matching checks, authorization checks, reasonableness checks, dependency checks, format checks, sequence test. The other one that I should put here is mandatory field. Now, the definition of these books are also there in the textbook. If you have a problem understanding these terms, please refer to your textbook under chapter 8 to learn the definitions of these program checks. The one that normally confuses people is dependency check. Like last time I told you that dependency checks depends on other information. It's information that depends on other information. For example, if a customer buys on credit, he buys goods for 5,000. Before he can be allowed to take goods of 5,000, the system will automatically check his credit limit. If his credit limit is 2,000, it means that customer cannot buy for 5,000. That's what we mean by dependency checks. Reasonableness checks, it means that if this customer is used to ordering 10,000 goods, and by mistake, instead of writing 10,000, the order flag puts 100,000, the system must be able to alert the order flag and ask if the order flag is aware and you want to transact the transaction or want to process 100,000 and not 10,000. That's what we mean by reasonableness check. Format checks, normally we'll talk about your alphanumeric check. Sometimes you get that where you are supposed to put your ID number, someone has written their name. So format checks will ensure that you only put digits and not alphabets. Program checks, we have processing, we have sequence test, arithmetic accuracy, reasonableness, consistency, range test, limit test, accuracy test, and matching. Normally, the other ones you guys know them. Arithmetic accuracy check, it is the calculation that is being done by the system. Reasonableness, I have just explained it. Consistency, range test. Range test, let's go talk about range test. For example, TUT ITS system has been programmed that if a student gets between 0 and 49, automatically it's a fail. If a student gets between 50 and 73, it's a pass. If a student gets between 74 to 100, it's a pass with distinctions. That's what we mean by a range test. Then we have the final one, the output controls. The results, the outcome, the reports. So let's look at the reports that you normally get in the output stage or at the output stage. We have audit trail, run-to-run balance reports, override reports, exception reports, activity reports, access violation reports. It is also important for you that to ensure that you know the meaning of these reports. Let's start with audit trail. Audit trail, we say it provides listing of transactions, summaries, and list of tables used in the process. Audit trails helps the auditors even to make their job very simple. When you use CAT, the computer audit assistant technology, or when you use CAT, it's very simple. Sorry about that. CAT stands for computer assisted audit techniques. When you use CAT and you have audit trail, it makes the job of the auditors very simple. So that's why you need an audit trail. Run-to-run balancing. Here it's supposed to be run-to-run balancing, not run-to balancing. Run-to-run balancing reports. I will fix it. Oh, as I speak, let me just fix it, because I know people will call me for just a simple mistake and say, Kenny, you wrote run-to balancing. Which one is that? So let me fix it. It's a run-to-run balancing reports, which provide evidence that the opening balances which have been updated by a series of transactions have resulted in correctly calculated closing balances. Meaning that what the system does is that it works backwards. It takes closing balances and minus all the transactions that took place to ensure that the opening balances and the closing balances reflect what actually happened. Override reports, which provide a record of computer controls which have been overridden by employees using supervisor or management privileges. Override reports is this one. Normally I say if you go to ShopRite, let's use Miss Marshall's example. If you go to ShopRite, then you buy at the till. Those ones who are using NSFAS, they will know what I'm talking about. They only allocated to you 400, you buy grocery of 500. Then you say, yo, no, I don't want mayonnaise. Let me take back mayonnaise and cheese, because now you have noticed that you have taken a lot of luxury things. What happens is that the cashier calls a controller. A controller comes, and when the controller comes, he overrides and cancels the items. He's the only person at ShopRite who can override this transaction. So that's what happens. We are going to have an override report. Exception reports, which provide a summary listing of any activities, conditions, or transactions which fall outside of parameters which have been set for control purposes. For example, employees whose remuneration for the wage period falls outside the reasonableness parameters. Here, in case of students, I can make example. If you can remember in class, we did example or a question where they say a student got more than 100% or a student got -0 or -50. In that case, we are going to have an exception report, because you cannot get more than 100%. You must get within 100%, because 100 is the maximum that you can get. And you can also not get -0. It's either you get 0 and that's it. So in that case, you are going to have exception reports. Activity reports, we say, which provide a record for particular resources of all activity concerning that resource. For example, names of users, usage of time, and duration of usage, meaning that the system must be able to track the user. Once you access the system must create a report for the certain person. For you went to the system, you went through Facebook, you downloaded series, you look for other jobs using the resource of the company. All those things, we call them activities. So whatever that you do in the system, we are going to have an activity report. Now we have access violation reports, particularly important in relation to sensitive applications such as EFT and payroll. Normally, in your case, guys, because you're students, those who don't have EFTs, what happens is that if someone tries to enter your ITS using a password or a wrong password, we are going to have an access violation report. And same in the workplace, if someone is trying to access the EFT and payroll, we are going to have access violation report to see who tried to access the system and to make the system more efficient and secure. So that was the end of the slideshow. I am going to move to the questions. I'm a big fan of graded questions because most of the questions, if you can check, they come specifically from graded questions. So I am big fan. So we're going to do a few graded questions. Then I do a few homework questions that I already gave you. Then from there, I think we'll be good to go. So without any waste of time, let me start. We are doing question 4.26 from your graded question. I'm using a graded question for 2017, so just make sure that you also watch or you also go through these questions. 4.26, sorry. We're gonna start with 4.26. 4.26. If you have a book, it's on page 91. If you have a book, it's on page 91. Just check it there. On 4.26, we say that let's first read the requirement. Before we start with any questions, let's read the requirements first. I scanned this with my phone, so if you can't see everything, I just quickly scanned it with my phone to save time. The requirement, they say you are required to identify the category of general control and, if applicable, the subcategory into which each of the above falls. So we must identify general controls. You must say whether it's a control environment, continuity of operation, documentation, and you must also be able to mention a subcategory if there's any. So let's start. They say general controls can be categorized. General controls can be categorized as policies, procedures, and practices relating to the control environment, systems development and implementation, access control, continuity of operation, system software and operating control, and lastly, documentation. Most of the above categories can be broken down further into subcategories. For example, the control environment can be broken down into enforcement of integrity and ethical values, commitment to competence, management philosophy and operating style, and so forth. So the following policies, procedures, and practices are in place at Transp Limited, a large oil refinery. So let's start with number 1. Yep, I'm here. Let me fix my mic. Yeah, whoa. Hey, yeah, it's well. So, number 1, they say that the company's IT steering committee meets monthly to consider, amongst others, the most up-to-date information on existing and emerging IT risk. They say that the company's IT steering committee meets monthly to consider, among others, or inter alia, the most up-to-date information on existing and emerging IT risk. So your job here is to identify the general control that you think it belongs to, the category, and if there's a subcategory, you can also mention it. As you can see, the keyword here is risk. The word risk on its own is a keyword. So we are going to have continuity of operation, and subcategory will be risk management. I hope you get it. Number 2, they say the company has a policy in place which facilitates the dismissal of an IT employee or other employee guilty of behavior which demonstrates a lack of integrity or ethics. This one straight to the point. Is a control environment under enforcement of integrity and ethical values. Number 3, they say the company has implemented the principles of least privilege, defense in depth, so forth in its computerization. So this one is going to be access under security policy. I just hope you can see how I'm answering these questions. First, I mentioned the category, then I mentioned the subcategory. Because if you do that, it makes it easier for you. Then we go to number 4. Number 4, they say a senior employee in the IT section regularly reviews the log of activity on the system, which details all activity which has taken place. Number 4, a senior employee in the IT section regularly reviews the log of activity on the employee system, which details all activity which has taken place. This one is going to be system software and operating control. Number 5, the system at Transp Pty Limited regularly sends a screen message to users to change their passwords. Users are permitted to enter their existing password on 3 further occasions. Thereafter, access will no longer be granted until a new password is entered. So this one is under category access. It's also password. It's also part of password under logical access control. Then number 6, we say that Pedro Scott, the Chief Information Officer, presents a report on the company's IT activities to the directors at the monthly board meeting. The report is then discussed in detail by directors and the Chief Information Officer. So this one, for obvious reasons, it's under control environment. Subcategory participation by those charged with governance, meaning that we are involving the directors to also know what is happening within the IT division. Transp Pty Limited duplicates its critical processing on a second computer installation which is very secure. This one is continuity of operations under disaster recovery. Number 8, several months after introducing a new inventory application, Transp Pty Limited internal auditors conducted a post-implementation review of the system. So post-implementation review, you get it under in-house when you are building the software, in-house development. So this one is going to be system development and implementation control under in-house development. Number 9, all personnel in the IT section, including the CIO, are subject. Sorry about that. Number 9, all personnel in the IT section, including the CIO, are subject to an annual performance review. This includes an interview with the steering committee, which covers career development, how well the individual is performing his function, and disciplinary matters which may have risen against him. So this one is under control environment, subcategory human resource policies. Lastly, the last one, we have management at Transp Limited encourages employees to identify ways in which the application which they use can be improved. This may result in the need to modify the application software. If so, the request to modify the software must be clearly documented and approved by the user department head, the CIO, and the steering committee. So this one is going to be under control environment. The last one, it's going to be under system development and implementation. It's going to be under system development and implementation control. Subcategory is going to be program change controls. So I just hope you are also able to identify those. So now we are going to 4.27 on page 92. 4.27 on page 92. Yep, you are here. Let me read the requirements. We are doing 4.27. The requirement, they say that indicate whether each of the controls listed under 1 to 10 above is a general control or an application control. And for those controls which you identify as a general control, indicate the category of general control to which each relates, meaning that if it's just application control, you just say application control and then you stop. But if it's a general control, you also mention the subcategory. I just hope it's clear. So let's start. (4.27) they say that the following controls have been implemented at Goodwits Limited, a large book wholesaling company which has a fully computerized accounting system. When a delivery is made from a supplier to Goodwits Limited, the receiving clerk enters the order number for the goods into the system. If the order number is not valid, the receiving clerk will not accept the delivery. So this one, because the order clerk enters the order number into a system, it's going to be an application control. Number 2, a new employee cannot be successfully added to the employee master file without a valid income tax reference number being entered. It's also an application control. Number 3, Goodwits Pty Limited recently appointed a committee to monitor and advise on the specific risk faced by the IT department. This one is going to be a general control. And remember what we said, once you say it's a general control, you must also give us a subcategory. It's going to be a general control under continuity of operations. Number 4, we say that when an application program change request is made by a user department, it must be approved by the IT steering committee and the head of the user department before it is affected. When an application program change request is made by a user department, it must be approved by the IT steering committee and the head of user department before it is effected. I just want you to sink in the question and think about the answer. So I'm going to give you 5 seconds. 1. Okay, your 5 seconds is up. The answer to number 4, it's going to be general control under system development and implementation control. Number 5, we say all creditors are paid by EFT. To effect the transfer, 2 senior employees must independently enter their unique passwords. This one is going to be an application control. Number 6, entry to Goodwits Limited data center is restricted. You swipe a card and you enter a PIN to access the data center. So the answer to that is going to be a general control under access. Number 7, let me just scroll up. Sweet. Number 7, the company makes use of firewall and antivirus. If you have studied, you will know that this is under general control, subcategory continuity of operations. Number 8, we say a purchase order must be supported by a store requisition signed by the warehouse controller. Number 8, a purchase order must be supported by a store requisition signed by the warehouse controller. You must remember this thing they are happening on a system, so this one is also going to be an application control. Number 9. Number 9, we say if a debtor has not paid its account within 2 working days of exceeding its credit terms, for example 60 days, meaning that on the 62 day the credit controller will contact the debtor to request payment. This is also an application control, because in any company, let's take Makama for example, or let's take Foshin, they have a lot of customers who are buying on credit. So obviously you do not have a credit controller who's there to count the days for debtors. The system automatically counts the days. When you have exceeded your credit terms, it alerts the credit controller, then the credit controller will call you. So that one is also going to be an application control. The last one, the Chief Information Officer conducts regular meetings with IT personnel on individual basis to enforce the importance of strong ethical culture and discuss ethical situations which may have arisen. This one, I think we all know where we get ethics and integrity. So it's under control environment, under enforcement of ethics and integrity. Now we're going to do the last question on graded questions. We are going to do 4.29 on page 94. 4.29 on page 94. Yep, we are there. Let's read the requirements first. You are required to, number A, distinguish between general control and application control in a computerized environment. B, state the recommendations you would make to improve the general controls at Music Mix Pty Limited based on the information given above. Justify your recommendations. So without waste of time, let's just answer the first one. Distinguish between general controls and application control in a computerized environment. This one we can easily answer it. We say that general controls are controls which should be in place before processing of any transaction. We say these are controls that establish an overall framework for controls for computer activities, meaning that they must be there before you even think about accessing the computer. Just entering the data center using a user card or a thumb or using a key, that one on its own is going to be a general control because you are entering a data center or using a specific password. So what is application controls? We say application controls are controls which are directed to a specific task within the accounting system. They contribute to accurate and complete recording of information. So for just mentioning what I just said to you, you'll get your fully 4 marks and you are happy to move to your next question. So let's do number B. They say that state the recommendations you would make to improve the general controls at Music Mix based on the information given above. Justify your recommendation. Guys, the other thing that I want you personally to be aware of, it's the mark allocation. Look at the marks. It says 21. You cannot write four sentences and expect to get 21. It means you must critically think and critically reason for the marks of 21. You understand? So don't write few elements or few points and expect to get 21. You might get 8 if you only wrote few points. You must be able to justify all your reasons accordingly and sufficiently in order for you to get the fully 21 marks that you are saying. They say to you, you are in charge of the audit of Music Mix Pty Limited, a company which wholesales CDs, DVDs, and related products from its premises in Johannesburg. Recently, your firm Computer Audit Division completed a general control review of Music Mix Pty Limited and submitted its report to you. Now, the following points inter alia or among others were raised in the report. The company has a centralized data processing department linked to terminals in each of the departments, warehousing, data's marketing. The computer room in which the central processing unit and related equipment are located is situated in a secure part of the head office. Earlier in the year, some damage was caused to equipment in the computer room when heavy rain came through a window which had been left open overnight. The operator had opened the window during the day to improve ventilation. So what does it tell you? Already we have issues of ventilation, meaning that we can improve ventilation by introducing the use of air conditions. And the other things that we can identify from this statement is that they open windows during the day. So to avoid that, we must ensure that you do not have windows that can open. You can block the windows so that they can only use air conditions, because it happens well. Because if you can leave a window open, criminality as well it can take place. So we are just lucky that it was only heavy rain. So they must ensure that they close the windows, they block the windows, they introduce the use of air condition. Let's go to number two. Number two, they say access to the computer room is restricted after working hours by a steel gate, the activation of electronic surveillance system by the last person leaving the room, and at the end of the day. So here the problem is that access can not only be restricted after working hours. Let me highlight this so that you can see what I'm talking about. Is restricted after working hours, meaning that before or during working hours is not restricted. So here that is a problem. We are saying that only IT personnel should be the ones who are having access. Sorry about that. Who are having access to the system. So we must restrict access at all times and not only after working hours. Number three, we say that about 6 months ago, an expensive piece of equipment had been damaged when a member of Music Mix Computer Club had, without noticing, spilled a coke on the device. Then I'm gonna stop there. We know that computers are not waterproof or water resistant, so we must have a policy that if you are in the computer room, no eating. If it's lunch, everyone must go out and eat somewhere, because you are going to cost a company a lot of money, because now you have spilled a coke on top of a computer. So those are some of the things that we must make sure that we avoid, or we have a policy on eating and drinking to say that no eating and drinking in the IT department. Or we must at least create a kitchen for them. If you want to eat, you go to the kitchen and you eat there and you come back. Subsequently, the member opened the device to see what if any damage had been caused, and in doing so, data had been lost or corrupted, and processing had been disrupted for some time, as nobody knew how to resolve the problem. Now, the other thing that I can advise you here is that if it's damaged, we must have technicians who are going to work with that. You cannot damage a computer and open it yourself if you don't know anything about fixing computers. So immediately after he saw that the coke was spilled on the computer, the best thing is to introduce technicians to come and look at it, because you can do further damage if you open it. So here they say restructuring of the data had to be carried out from source documentation held in the user department. West Hall, the IT manager, explained that the company's computer club has access to the computer room after hours to do whatever computer fanatics do. I mean, surely this has to be the stupidest or the craziest IT manager in the world. We know that IT division or the computers carry important sensitive work-related information. So we cannot allow computer clubs just to enter and access that information, because we can have viruses, you can have computer crashing or information being stolen. And the other thing, if you can check, they are saying that the data had to be carried out from source documentation held in the user department. Clearly, in this IT department, they do not have any disaster recovery strategies, meaning that they are not backing up their data. That's why we are saying that they must have grandfather, a father, and a son, and here it's not being applied. So this IT manager is not even fit enough to see the need for such strategies in place. So those are some of the reasons that I can give you with regard to number 3. Those are some of the reasons that I can give you. So I'm going to end my video here, and I just hope you have learned everything, and I wish you all the best with regard to this. Please make sure that you study the textbook, because this is not going to be a substitute for a textbook. I still need you to go through the textbook to ensure that you understand everything. This is to do some of the questions just for you to understand and to have an idea of what type of questions they are going to ask you. If you liked this video, please click on the like button and leave comments if there's something that you want me to explain to you with regard to this chapter that you didn't understand. I will gladly help you with any questions regarding this chapter. Thank you.